Hey guys, welcome back to the Glam Chemist with your host Genesis Velasquez, and today we have a special guest. Her name is Nicole McCardy-Miller, also known as the Curly Chemist on Instagram and TikTok. Nicole is a senior chemist working in personal care and product development, and I had the opportunity to chat with her quite a little bit about our experiences in college, our experiences growing up in the Caribbean, and learning a ton when getting into our careers. So I'm really excited to have you as a part of the podcast. So I just want you to introduce yourself to our listeners. I obviously am a really big fan, but I would love to, promote everything you're doing and also connect with some of your followers. Just because I think that it's great to be in getting to know a lot more women in STEM, especially in this virtual space. And now we can connect in spaces like this, which is exciting.
Well, thank you so much. I love that you're following my content. It's so exciting. I love being able to connect with this community. But to introduce myself, yes, my name is Nicole McCardy-Miller. I got married last year during the pandemic. Another story for another time. Boy, oh, mess. But that one was a mess. But it happened. And so been married less than a year. I'm originally from the Bahamas. I moved to the States for school when I was 18, and I ended up staying after grad school. I live in Florida right now, which is nice because I do get to visit home a lot. Not right now because, COVID travel is crazy. I guess that's it. I guess that's introducing me from a basic level.
Yeah, I mean, you've accomplished so much since you've been here. I think that's also a really impressive part of our intro conversation together is how much you've been able to be a part of since you moved here, especially in STEM and in your previous research. So it'd be great to know what influenced you to get into STEM in the first place.
In school, I was always good in science. In high school, you can choose a track. You can choose more of an artsy track or whatever type of track. And it's same in the Bahamas. You can choose the type of classes you take. I think it's like grade 10. So my older sister, she's 5 years ahead of me. And when she went off to college, she studied physics. And we were always naturally, scientifically inclined. I don't even know if scientifically is a word, but we were always in the sciences.
That's
and
so cool.
I knew I did not like I knew that. I was not a fan of physics. I did well in it, but I was not a fan. So I remember thinking there's kind of that sibling thing where you're like, oh, I got to be like my sister. She's doing this smart thing. I'm going to do it too. So, and I was always naturally good in chemistry. In the national exams, we took it a little early and I was one of the only students that got an A in the class. I think there was another one. So I was naturally good in chemistry and I enjoyed it. And plus, my mother was a chemistry teacher for 10 years before staying at home with us.
Wow.
So there's that. And so I always had help. Yeah. Maybe that's why I was good in chemistry, because I always had help.
I was going to say, I think, so my background is a little bit different. I came from musical theater and fell into chemistry because I was just inclined to do it and I was quite good. But I think the fact that your whole family is involved in STEM is a whole other thing. Because I was relating to you right up until you said my mom's a chemist, or my mom at least taught chemistry. Having someone like a home tutor is a whole other story.
My mom was a lot of people's home tutor. I'm not even gonna joke. My friends would be like, Nikki, when you studying? And they would magically appear at my house and study with me so we would perform well together. So my mom was really helpful to a lot of my friends' lives.
That's amazing.
And yeah, so that is true. It's funny because my dad, no.
It's chemistry is one of those things that it's a real dichotomy. There's a split. You either absolutely understand it and thoroughly enjoy it, or you can never get it and you hate it. There's a very clear division between people who took the course, even folks in STEM or MD track. You took it and you either absolutely love it or you're like, I never want to see another compound again.
Definitely. I've definitely met people who are like, yeah, I love biology, hate chemistry. Or, just right brain versus left brain, people who just love the arts track, love writing, love that, and cannot stand math, cannot stand chemistry. I think my husband is one of those people. He is total arts. So it's really great to have that side in our
Yeah, it's a nice yin and yang.
Yes.
So obviously you come from very bright women who are all involved in some way in the sciences, which is a great influence to who you've become now. And how did you decide to go into your area of study?
Okay, well, so it was so funny because in high school, I really did not know what I was going to major in when I went to college. I was telling people all types of fields. I was like, I'm going to be an architect. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. Did not know. Finally settled on just majoring in chemistry. And I spent a year in the Bahamas, did the College of the Bahamas there for a year, and which is a lot of students do their first year just to get the hang of college. Then I went abroad to school and I studied chemistry. And I took on to it well, but I didn't necessarily know what I was going to do with it. And I remember that first year of taking chemistry in college when I went abroad. Oh my gosh, I struggled. I struggled. Like just, that being smart naturally, and just like what you said, like chemistry, that did not help me because I went to school thinking I could apply that same level of energy, and organic chemistry whipped me.
Yeah.
So I will say that, yes, you have to work very hard in chemistry, even if you're naturally inclined, because my goodness, college taught me to work hard. And
college taught me that I know nothing. Especially when, you go from high school thinking, and also the age where like you think you know absolutely everything. And especially when you've gotten into school and you're like, I'm fine, I've got this going for me and my future is going to be really bright. And then you walk into your first biochem course and your first orgo class or inorganic and you're like, yeah, I know nothing.
Yeah, you're like, why are you giving me this 3D model for this chemical? You're like, no, I like filling out the equations. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's just a different way of thinking. And because, when something came natural, you just kind of were like, oh, okay, I understand. This is great. I just have to kind of review it. No, definitely, physical chemistry had its own thing and organic chemistry had its own thing. So all of those branches of chemistry definitely had to really put
a game on.
A game on.
Because I knew going into my undergrad experience that it was going to be hard, because I know like STEM was going to be difficult. It was going to require a lot of me. But what I didn't realize is that when you're a general chem undergrad, like your degree is just chemistry, you have to learn every style of chemistry in under 4 years. So every semester you're cramming in gen chem, inorganic, organic, quantum, physics. Like you're covering so much ground that when I got to college and I got my first syllabus, I was like, wow, I am out of my league here. And, I don't know if you were alone in the States, but I remember I moved out of state and kind of did a whole thing where I started on my own. And I remember being completely lost, thinking I made a huge mistake. I am so out of my league. I have to work 10 times harder. I remember Friday nights meant going to the library at 10 o'clock and Saturday mornings meant showing up to Starbucks at 10 a.m. and studying like crazy, because it just requires that much more of your application, because all of the chemistry that you learn, it's all vastly different.
Yes.
Gen Chem covers this much, but physics and quantum and everything else you study is a whole different beast every semester. And I definitely don't miss it. I'm glad it's over. No. I never need to do it again.
I don't know if I know how to study anymore. And I would definitely agree, because, when you come, because for me, I moved from the Bahamas to Indiana, and I'd never been to that. Well, no, I actually been to that state before when I dropped my sister off for school. So that was a very different experience. And then there were a couple of students from the Bahamas too. So I had that type of community. Your parents aren't there, all those type of things aren't there. And you're also adjusting to just being free. So I remember I had friends who were, maybe taking different types of courses that they didn't have to necessarily study as much. And, they'd want to go out, they'd want to, be up really late. And I remember being a freshman who was in organic chemistry.
I'm not laughing at you.
No, you need to laugh at me, because
no, I'm remembering this experience, the trauma's coming back.
I'm just thinking about me, and this was just nonsensical, so dumb. My first organic chemistry lab was terrible, and it's my own fault because I did not prepare. Cocky. No, don't be. Yeah, need to be humble. I did not prepare like I should. I think I just skimmed it, and then I went off because it was a freshman. You should not take organic as a freshman. And I went off, and then I went to my class, and I just was not prepared. And organic is a lab you need to be prepared for. You don't have a lab. You don't have a lab partner. At least I didn't.
I did, but we had no idea what the hell we were doing.
Oh my gosh. and I went sleepy because all the freshmen wanted to like just run around and do crazy things. And I was just like, this is a mess. And I think we were trying to extract caffeine. That's like the first
Nothing
organic
like
lab.
a long titration when you're nice and hungover and tired. Like
I
it
was
takes
just
all
like,
day.
that should never. Oh.
I think also Orgo is you said humble yourself. I don't want to scare any of the listeners, but organic chemistry is the most humbling experience. You think that you are going to be this amazing lab rat, and you know, you got the lab coat, you're all ready, you got the goggles on. You walk into an Orgo course absolutely thinking that you know what you're doing, and almost every time your yield will be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Your entire experiment will be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Glass will break.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, glass will break.
Yeah, your distillations will fall apart. Almost everything that you can imagine and not imagine in a lab will go wrong in Orgo, and then that's what really, I think that's the muscle that flexes for the rest of your years in chemistry.
Yes.
Like if you can sustain during Orgo chemistry, you can pretty much survive almost anything. I'm convinced.
Yes. If you can sustain being in a lab for 5 hours only to drop something. Then you can sustain a lot. Or if you can go into your first lab and spill your experiment and have to start over while everyone's looking at you like, why are you in here?
Yep.
Like, yeah, but it definitely takes discipline, and it takes a little bit, like what you said, separation. You know, you're going to have to go and study. You might not be able to hang out as much, or you just have to have boundaries, which is hard when you're a college student. So
yeah. You came to the States and studied STEM. What did you pursue as a degree once you started taking courses?
Well, I actually stayed on the chemistry track. I was doing a chemistry BS, and then I switched. And the advisor I had at the time, he was head of department. I'm not really sure if he should have had students, just because he was the head of department. So I really did not know what was going on just because of the advisement. So, and I'm, foreigner and all of that. So there was just a lot of handholding that I did not have. So junior year, I ended up switching to more chemistry pre-med, because I had like Spanish and all that stuff that wasn't adding up to my BS degree. So I was like, well, if I switch, I will be able to graduate on time and all of that, because I had all these extra courses from like AP and stuff like that. And so when I switched, I got a different professor. And I must say, this professor really did help change, I would just say, my career life, just because she was so influential. Female professor, she loved to focus on the female students just because there weren't a lot of us. And she just helped me understand my track. And also, I was the one who, well, when I was thinking of what I wanted to do, I told her like what I liked. I loved reading the backs of products. I had skin problems growing up, so I loved trying to understand what helped my skin. Always approach things in that scientific manner. So she told me about the cosmetic industry. She actually introduced me to the cosmetic industry and told me about the Society of Cosmetic Chemists and just everything. And when I ended up like taking the GRE and pursuing grad school, she drove me to the grad school that I ended up going to.
Oh, that is such a great support system.
Yes. And it's amazing how like one person can actually change your trajectory. Like, I'm not saying that if I did not meet her, I wouldn't have stumbled upon this on my own, but I don't know if I really would have. I really don't know how I would have been in this industry. Maybe I would have been in a different one. Maybe I would have ended up in this industry later, but she definitely helped me understand how I could be in this industry.
That's amazing. I'm thinking about the young woman that I'm becoming now, and I'm realizing how many educators are the reason why I speak the way I speak, act the way I act, and why I've accomplished the things I've accomplished. And I don't think that some of my teachers growing up even realize how much they influenced me. I had a great bio teacher in high school that was an adjunct professor in Princeton for biology, and he taught me all of the lab prep because he knew I was going to school for STEM, and he helped me, learn how to develop the agar for the petri dishes, and taught me all of the little skills that he knew I was going to have to apply in my first labs. So when I went in, I knew exactly what I was doing, and without feeling like that fear of teeter-tottering through a lab. So he definitely helped me a lot, and I actually still see him till this day. He's a patient at my mother's doctor's office. Aww. And I don't think they have no true idea how much they've influenced like my career in and of itself. So you're lucky to have found not only like kinship and a comrade with your professor, but someone who was able to like open a door that you weren't even able to have access to. and I think this is like a little bit separated from what we've talked about, but we've discussed like being like minorities in STEM, given that we're female and people of color, especially being from the Caribbean and kind of doing it on our own. Having those like mentorships are the most important part of going into the space, and networking is the most important part of going into space, because you really can't do it alone as kind of the women in the space. You can, but it's not the most welcoming industry for
And you don't have
females in
to.
STEM.
You can do things alone, but you don't have to.
That's
And
also,
I
yeah.
and I agree, coming from the Caribbean, anybody who grew up in the Caribbean who has Caribbean parents, they know that, either or, like if your people are from the Caribbean, like you understand that when you hear science is you're going to be a doctor. And, I was not interested. I had many family members who said, like, are you going to be a doctor? And I said, if I was a doctor, I would probably be more on the analytical side. Like maybe, like, I don't like maybe with the machinery, I don't think I want to do hands-on work with like patients and stuff. And I had the opportunity, I did a semester abroad where I did a biology internship. I had the opportunity to kind of participate in like working with patients, and it was not for me. I did not get that adrenaline rush that all my comrades did around me who are now doctors. So I knew that that wasn't the field I wanted, but I still had some of them relatives who were like, come on, think about it. You're smart enough. And I don't blame them at all for that. It's just, they want good opportunities for me. They want stability. And, cosmetic science, like, what is that?
Yeah.
So they were like, I don't know, like, you gonna make money in that field? So, and just knowing that it's something you can do and having support, like it is really nice, because you're right, like with the family and upbringing, I don't think I necessarily even knew that was an opportunity because I didn't see it around me growing up on a small island. So yeah.
But I remember explaining to folks cosmetic science and getting kind of the same response. Like, is it lucrative? Is it a real position? What is it actually? Like, people still to this day, I can't clearly explain what I do to folks. They still don't necessarily get the applications that I do in a lab and what it means to be in cosmetic science. But the one good thing about it is there are so few of us. So like, people don't really know that we exist. I always say it's one of those jobs where like, it gets done, but you don't know who does it. So it actually allows for a lot of opportunity, and I'm loving that I'm seeing like obviously more people that look like us and that are part of our communities participating in this space. But I like to remind folks, it's a $72 billion business. It is. We're fine. We're fine over here. We're
definitely
totally
lucrative.
Fine. Yeah.
University of Cincinnati has a master's program and a PhD program in pharmaceutical science with emphasis in cosmetic science. So there are very few colleges where you can get an undergraduate, let alone a graduate degree in cosmetic science. I think there's Farley Dickinson in New Jersey. There's a school in Long Island. There's the University of Cincinnati. I'm not sure if there are others, but there's not that many. So I went there to get my master's. I was thinking of doing my PhD, but I wanted to start into formulation. So I felt like just starting with my master's was best for me. My undergrad is in chemistry pre-med technically, but more just like a chemistry bachelor's of arts. And I remember even people telling me, don't get a bachelor's of art. You'll never get a job. You'll never get into grad school. All the places that I applied to did not care. They saw good grades. They saw chemistry. They said, good job. So random thing. But anyways,
people are always impressed by chemistry. That's all you got to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And grad schools, there are so many programs, and they, a lot of people in science go to the medical school route. So, when there are scientists wanting to do research, and there's so much different types of research, they want you. But, I've personally never heard someone say, oh, she doesn't have a BS. She has a BA. I personally never, but there probably are fields maybe where people are a little bit more particular. But anyways. So I studied to do my master's. I was on site. They actually have an online program, but I was an on-site student, which was great because I must say their pharmaceutical science with cosmetic science program is very much in the pharmaceutical science world, where, they do some cosmetics, absolutely, like skincare science, higher care science. I learned a lot of really amazing theoretical information, but you also had like principles of pharmaceutical science and advanced pharmaceutics and just things like that. So I was really able to be a skin scientist and not only understand how to develop products, but also understand the effects and how to analyze them and how to I must say the most useful class I've ever taken was statistics in grad school. I can't remember the formal name for the course because it was just about research. But when I tell you that was a good program because it helped me not only understand how information is tabulated, understand what's significant, and just from a research perspective. So it was statistics basically for researchers. It was advanced statistics for researchers.
I've actually chatted on the podcast. I've actually chatted with a few alum from the University of Cincinnati, I think both in the online and in person. And it seems to be one of the best programs for cosmetic science. Like, it seems like the folks who have the best grasp on formulation and customization have come from University of Cincinnati. You guys seem to have like a really thorough understanding of skin science and how to apply customization for skin science.
Do agree the professors there are amazing. You know, you have people who are known in the industry who are professors there, and a lot of the students go to work for major companies doing really big things. So yes, the program is great. University of Toledo is a really great program too. I've had an intern from there that we absolutely loved, and so there is a lot of good programs if you're out there.
Mm-hmm.
And the online program is great too. My coworker is doing the online program right now, so just a lot of opportunities.
That's awesome. Speaking of opportunities, so given your education, how did you feel post-grad when you started looking for work, and like what routes did you end up taking given the degree that you
Again, a humbling situation
had earned?
because because you're studying and you're in grad school, and grad school is great because you're doing a lot of hands-on work. I was working with skin permeation models. I was working with Procter and Gamble to write my research paper. Like, I was doing a lot of cool stuff, and I was
Yeah.
super excited, and I was thinking, yeah, people are gonna want me. And I started applying.
I got this.
I got this. Started applying, and yeah, I got a lot of no's, and that's months of no's.
Wow,
And it
really?
is anyone who is applying for jobs, when you start, it is so humbling because the amount of no's you get, and you can get no's for a million reasons, but you just get a lot of no's, and you're trying to follow up, you're trying to do these things. You'll get like a bunch of first interviews, and then something happens. So it's a humbling experience. And then suddenly you get a lot of people that are interested in you. And it just happens. So it's a very weird experience. But yes, moving from grad school to getting a job, definitely learned a lot about how to present your best self on an interview, how to understand when a company wants you or not, the things to ask for, how to advertise yourself in the most positive way so that you can get a good deal. Like, know your worth. I would definitely say continue to know your worth, because you can get humbled by that experience and then just take anything. But you still, like, I remember my professor, I think he's a Procter and Gamble alum, so he's well known in the industry too. And I kind of was feeling real down. I was applying for months and I didn't have anything. And he was just like, "Don't give up. This is how much you should be getting paid. You're worth it. Don't give up." And I just remember, and this is a male professor who has been in this industry, and he's just like, "Don't give up." And that just really spoke to me as a student who felt like she knew nothing, because he was like, "You are good. You deserve this much. Don't take less than your worth, and it will just keep applying." He's like, absolutely, you might have to eventually concede, but he was like, "You are worth it though. Don't let them think," like, he was like, "You're worth it."
Love that.
And
So the listeners, I'm like nodding my head like really, really hard. I love that. I think I was very confused when you said, I kept hearing no's, but I understand now. I think the experience that I shared, similar to yours, I was very lucky to start working immediately after college, and some of the listeners know I did not go to grad school. I just got my BS in chemistry and started working in the cosmetic sciences. But I remember struggling the most with the offers, because given our experience, our applied chemistry and our applied skills require us to spend a lot of time in the lab and make us far more qualified than some other folks in different spaces of STEM, especially when you're working in the cosmetic sciences. The tangible application of things, I feel like, make you more valuable to companies than just the standard education. And being recognized for that value is really difficult. I think that once you're starting out and post-grad, the last thing they want to offer you is senior chemist positions or salaries. They really want you to start entry level and work your way up and somehow pay your dues, given that it's like the industry standard. You have to remember that you're more than qualified for the position and more than qualified to be paid your value. Because unfortunately in our industry, it's still kind of like an old man's game, and you will find yourself having to defend why you're worth the money and the time and the effort.
Yes.
And that takes the most time. So now I understand what you mean, because when I was interviewing, the hardest thing for me was counter offering and negotiating my actual salary. Getting the interviews was fine, and going through the levels of application were fine. It really came down to folks looking at me and saying, well, you're 20 something years old, you're recently post grad, regardless of how many hours you've clocked in, and regardless of how many certifications you have, we want you to make this much, and we want you to accept this. And it's like, well, that's not fair, unfortunately, in our space. So I definitely experienced a lot of what you did, and for me it was more like I was saying no, because I had to really stand up for myself. There were a lot of wonderful positions, it's just we couldn't meet where I wanted to for salary and expectations. And which is unfortunate, because I spent a little bit of time like, well, am I ever gonna get a job? Like, am I really gonna have to settle for like entry level work when I know that I'm worth far more? And there was a time where I was just like, well, I'll take whatever R&D job I can get.
Well, absolutely. I actually completely understand where you're coming from, because I did hear some yeses. Yes, definitely. I did hear some yeses. And I had some companies, because you're right, when you are in this space, because you came straight out of undergrad, I did have the master's, but people like experience. And sometimes the master's isn't necessarily considered experience in every company. Sometimes they want you to start at entry level, even though you've had this 2 years and you have some publications, they want you to start at entry level. I had companies offering less than entry level. I had companies offering, and yeah, I actually had one company laugh. And when on an interview,
that one too. I had someone laugh at me when I asked for salary.
Exactly. And they were like, you're never going to get that. And I was like, this is actually a lot less than I've been advised to ask for. But, you do have sometimes that, and that's hard, because I even had that years later, being older, having like 4 years of experience or more, 6 years of experience, and hearing, oh no, we want to start you back where you started when you just left grad school. And I'm like, wait, what? So it's a very interesting experience. Applying for schools. Some of it is humbling. Some of it's just sad. You might cry and you might need a boost of confidence, or, so there's definitely that discussion you have in your head. You're like, should I take this? And yeah, so definitely it is hard, because, everyone's circumstance is different. Maybe they do need to take something and, think about working their way up if that's the company that they want. But I like what you're saying, you are worth it. Obviously if you're asking for, 20 years of salary when you're at 2 years, that's different.
But similar to your story, that advice came to me from like an executive male that said, that watched me go through my experience and do as many internships as I did and do the research that I did. And his basic advice was, someone else is going to ask for it. Why shouldn't you? And, someone far less qualified is going to ask for it and probably get it. And, his, I guess it has to come from like a corporate white man that asks for it anyway. And the only way to get to the positions you want to in life is to simply ask for it and kind of force your way through, and make sure that I was able to advocate for I'm going to say advocate because it's true. Like, you're in an interview and you're in that room by yourself. If you're not defending yourself, no one's going to kind of come up for you. And like, you're not going to have the professor there to like hold your hand.
No, you're not.
You have to haggle and you have to negotiate. Yep, I hear that.
You have to know your worth. And yeah, my professor, white, male, very known in the industry. Me, Black female from the Bahamas, I'm with you, sometimes people are like, you grow up with the mentality of take the job, earn your way up. And, sometimes, listening to the people who are not afraid to say what they're worth and coming in with that same energy, even though you do know that, when you walk into an interview room, you're maybe not looked at the same. You're not necessarily looked at the same. You're just not. And, there's been things that have been said to me by people like, oh, I didn't expect you to be the scientist. I'm like, why? But that's just that's a whole other conversation.
I've gotten that one too. Like, you don't look like a chemist. It's like, hold on, let me put on my lab coat. Give me a second.
I'm like, what do you need from me? Do you need me to like blow up something right now?
Yeah. So like, hold on, let me wear my goggles to the grocery store. Like,
yes, I've had I've had definitely some of that just working and, being in spaces where, you might be the only person that looks like a certain way, or a person of color, or a female even. And even in the cosmetic space, because you're right, it is an old man's game, because science in general is an old man's game. Even if it's a female oriented industry, females are only just making their way.
Yeah, especially, folks that look like us and come from our communities. They don't expect you to be in the room, so you do have to go in there kind of like making sure
I
that they
belong
know,
in here.
yeah, making sure that like I've arrived and I am more than capable, and check the qualifications.
I mean, it's true, because how many spaces and places you enter where you can count with one hand how many people look like you, or or whatever, and then you look at the leadership and then you're like, okay, there's nobody like me. And so it's true. And it's something you notice. It's something that can be demotivating if you let it be, but it's something you have to acknowledge. You can pretend it's not there, but it is there. And it's just something that can help. I mean, it's just knowing that you're not alone, like building this community is wonderful. And also being strong in your position, because we're needed. This is a female industry that it's for everyone. So you want your scientists to look like you, to help fix blind spots that are in the industry. And that's just growth. And then one day you want scientists to look like you, to be leaders, because it just helps to grow the community and just broaden the field.
Yeah, and given that most of us are the consumers of the products, and that actually brings us into like a wonderful next transition. I mean, you explained to me a little bit about why you started the Curly Chemist, and I think it's related to what you just mentioned. You wanted to create a space where folks who are going to use the products are the ones that are creating the products and educating folks on how to create those products. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how the Curly Chemist came to be?
Absolutely. So in my professional life, I've had a lot of different work in my professional life. I've worked primarily with skin, but I've worked on cosmetics, RX products, OTCs, medical devices. I've worked with nutraceuticals. I've worked with cannabinoids. I've worked with a lot of different things.
Cool.
That was a very interesting field of science. But all of that's been primarily focused on the skin. And when I was in grad school, I went natural. Great opportunity to go natural, by the way, just because you're in grad school, so you're busy and it's a great time to rock 2-inch hair. So went natural, did the big chop after a year of just transitioning. And I hadn't been natural since I was like 14, 15. And I actually never really defined my curls growing up. My mom, she always blow dried my hair and braided it or plaited it. And I never really got to like understand what my curl type even was, or how to hydrate it. Cause if you grew up in the 90s, there were products. It was taming. It was that pink lotion. It was some type of blue magic.
And that and that regular relaxer and the regular relaxer.
Oh, and that just for me. I used the olive oil one back in the day. And I have very thick hair, so I needed 2 packs of that. And so
like cringing.
Yes.
That scalp was dry. It was parched. That scalp was begging for water.
And listen, you can have healthy, relaxed hair. Don't get me wrong, but going natural
not
was
in
really
the 90s.
Great.
Not in the 90s.
Maybe not.
Maybe now in 2021, but not in the 90s.
Now that we have more products and stuff, yes, but yeah,
totally.
Boy.
Yeah. So basically, growing up in the 90s, it was just about taming and slicking it back as quickly as possible, and making it as less of a problem for our mothers, because I totally relate. I still have alopecia. Thanks, Mom.
Oh no.
Thanks,
well,
Mom.
I had really thick hair, and so there's 3 of us total sisters, and I have 1 brother, so 3 girls, and all of us had hair, like long hair, and I had the thickest. Like my mom would say, like your square footage of hair is 3 times your sister's. Wow. So like I ended up relaxing my hair, went natural, and just like at the time I was studying cosmetic chemistry. I was in grad school, so it was really great as we studied hair care science to really take what I was going through and also apply that. So since like in my professional life, I entered more of the skincare space, I was like wanting to really dive into the hair care space, and also especially curly hair care space, because that is in itself a field that can be sometimes ignored. I mean, right now we're having a movement. It's not a trend, it's a movement, the natural hair movement. So right now it's becoming very popular, but there's still years and years of research that wasn't done, and understanding that even as consumers, we're still figuring it out. So I was really excited to take that knowledge and bring my cosmetic science. So that's what I created the Curly Chemist for. It's more bite-sized information about the industry, about curly hair, but it's so that you can understand. It's not to necessarily give you a degree in cosmetic science, but it's so that you can kind of not only understand how products are made, but what ingredients to be looking for, and also to understand your hair, like how it grows, why it grows like this. It's a place to help love your curls, but also understand them. That, in one sentence, it's to love your curls and to understand the science of them.
I love that. That's a great tagline. I loved seeing your content and just loving how it's like bite-sized information in a way that I can understand. Because I'm not a formulator, I'm just a chemist, but the way that you apply the information and the way that you present it to folks as consumers, I think is brilliant, because you don't overcomplicate it with the science, but you also make it totally relatable, because these are household items and names that I see on shelf, or like I'll see. The one thing I love is you kind of like debunk the trends too. You kind of go into like what the popular products are, quote unquote, or I guess the marketing pitches are, quote unquote, saying, and what the true benefits are. So I really appreciate how you present that, even as like a developer of hair care, because I think folks are so quick to just jump on board to like the marketing story and the pitch and forget that, like, certain hair tresses need different kind of love and need different kind of overall science and formulation. So I'm loving your content. And it's making me appreciate my curls a little bit more. I'm a person that, like, I'm lucky to have curls, but I am not a good I don't take care of them very well. I'm very much like, I'm taming my hair as much as I can, but I do appreciate how you say and how you promote loving your curls and embracing them and learning enough so that you can tend to them well and take care of them. Because, we're lucky to have the hair textures that we have. And I think for a long time, especially like you mentioned, growing up in the 90s, it was more like, not like a burden, but it was definitely like pressed onto me that your hair is your hair is difficult. Your hair is difficult and we can't manage your hair. And it's like, well, maybe it's not supposed to be managed. Maybe it's supposed to be just taken care of and loved and tended to, and talk to it nicely, treat it nice. And I think that's what you promote in your like social media, which I really enjoy, and I think a lot of our listeners are going to enjoy. So definitely go check out the Curly Chemist, and learn a little bit about how to, like you mentioned, love on yourself and love on your curls a little bit, and maybe get involved in STEM, which is cool. So we're almost wrapped up, but I do have two more questions for you. So my first question is, what's the best advice you wish you had given your undergraduate self?
To realize it will all work out in the end, and not to be so hard on yourself, because, especially when you kind of start out and you're not doing as well as you want and you really don't know what's going on, just take it day by day. Don't be so hard on yourself. Seek help to people who can help you. You have all these resources in college. It's amazing the resources you have in college. You have counseling, free counseling, because you got to pay for it when you start working.
Yep.
You have a place to be, meal plan sometimes. You have a lot of resources. You have these smart people with experience around you. Use the resources around you. You don't have to bear it alone. And I know sometimes being like a foreigner in a place, you feel like no one understands you. They might not understand you, but like you still have the resources, and just take it one step at a time. So yes, I would say don't be so hard on yourself. You're going to make it through. It's all going to make sense somewhat, but don't be so hard on yourself.
I love that. My last question to you is, what's the best professional advice that you've received, and do you still live by it?
So I actually thought about this, and I have two things come to mind.
Okay.
So this is more professional advice, and stay with me. Okay. So this is at a time in my professional life where I was overwhelmed. I was in this position. This position had a lot of responsibility. It was stretching me, and I just felt overwhelmed. I just felt like, what's going on? And so my colleague, she said something to me that kind of stood out. And it basically was, go to work, do the best you can, go home and forget about it. The reason why that stuck out to me, and it still helps me on my worst days, is just that all you can really do is your best. So you could be extremely frustrated. No one's listening to you. You warned about 2 months later happens and no one listened to you. Like you can be extremely frustrated, and that energy can come home with you and affect your relationships and affect your self-worth, especially if you've been in a toxic work environment before. So just going in and doing your best and going home and just releasing that energy and focusing on the things around you, whether that be your personal life, like your boyfriend or girlfriend or family members or whatever, just remembering that you can only do your best and not every space is going to be the best. And that's even something to remember, but just go in, do your best, go home, try to forget about it. And if a change needs to be made, make it.
That is amazing advice. I would have loved to hear that in my first position. Yeah, because I definitely remember having like a very toxic work environment. And unfortunately, I did find myself carrying that home, and I couldn't shake off the day. Looking back now, I'm like, I spent a lot of time carrying around something that I could have just left at work and not kind of ruined everyone else's time.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think that's also back to what you mentioned in your first response, which is like, be kind to yourself. Like whatever happened at work, it's fine. And you can just try again tomorrow. And it's not worth, stressing or holding on to it in the evening or bringing it home or carrying it into what should be your safe space. That's definitely amazing advice. I think, especially in our work culture now, this is not necessarily my problem, actually.
And that's okay. You
Yeah.
can be dedicated to your professional
Mhm.
job and without letting it necessarily negatively impact your day, or because not every moment is going to be a good moment. Not every
Mhm.
period or season of your work is going to be good. But you need, you need your home values. You can't go home and ruin relationships because you're not feeling respected in your work environment. Like that's why I'm like, if a change needs to be made, you got to make it, because
Love that.
I know it's hard. And
No, I
my
love
second
it.
one.
I love it. I wish I had met you 2 years ago. Like, I love
That
that.
was really useful advice that stuck
It
out to me, because that
is.
was, oh my goodness. And my
Yeah.
second one, this is more, I guess, for your personal projects.
Hmm.
Um, so I was listening to this podcast. It's called Jesus and Jollof. It's a really great podcast. And
I like that name. That's so funny. I
I
love that. This
know,
is very
oh,
cool. Okay.
love that podcast. So anyways, and the girls are saying, don't feel like you're undervalued in a space, or that you can't enter a space because it's just oversaturated or something like that. They're like, go to the grocery store and walk in the water aisle. And they were like, do you see how much types of water there are? And they all have their market, and they all have their purpose, and they all have their flavors and whatever. And there is someone who wants that specific brand. Some of them are niche. Maybe their audience is smaller, still valued. Some of them are mainstream. Some of them are inexpensive. Some of them are bougie. You know, and when you think about that, because for me, entering this curly hair space, I remember people saying things like, oh well, there's enough people doing that, like it's not unique anymore, you should have done this 5 years ago. Well, 5 years ago I was in school, so well, not 5 years ago, but you can enter a space even if it might be oversaturated. You can always bring your own spin. If it's your passion, do it. You might have to change your approach. You might have an audience, like maybe it's not 100,000, maybe it's 50,000, maybe it's 10,000, but you have purpose if you love what you're doing, and people will love it too. So
I
that
love
just always
it.
stood out to me.
I actually needed to hear that today. So thank you for sharing that advice. I'm finding myself, struggling and trying to find my space in this content creation of things and developing my business. So I absolutely love that piece of advice. Thank you to the ladies of the podcast, and thank you for sharing it with us. I'm sitting here just like, oh, okay, yeah. Like sometimes you need that the universe sends you a message because you needed it.
Hmm.
um, those are both amazing pieces of advice, and I wish you a lot of luck with your content creation. I think that it is awesome to have someone in our industry and in our space advocating for folks that, share our hair texture and also share our community. I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you. I always love chatting with you. I can't wait to chat with you again. I love having you on, and I love creating this community with you. You have been like one of the inspirations for creating this podcast. As I mentioned, before to listeners, the reason for this podcast is because I've found this wonderful community of women in STEM via social media during the pandemic. And, we all have had different experiences that hold a lot of value for folks going into this industry and give a lot of advice. And we're allowed to give a lot of advice to folks that, during this time haven't been able to either go to internships or participate in graduate programs or even experience some of the trade shows. So I'm hoping that our conversations gives you a little bit of insight of what it's going to be like for you, or maybe you'll learn something, or maybe you can take a token away. So I'm happy to have had you on this, and I'm hoping that every one of our listeners goes and follows you and, interacts with your content. And I really appreciate having you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I love this community. I was so excited when you reached out. And I feel like I learned from people like you, people who are brave enough to go out and do their own thing and use the things that they have to build their industry. And I'm impressed by people who do that. So it's an amazing thing to meet other entrepreneurs and other people who just want to continue to build this industry, but shape it in a way that also their personality and who they are and where they came from is reflected. And yes, for the Curly Chemist, it's on Instagram and TikTok. So please follow and let me know what you want to see.
Awesome. Well, we'll have you on soon. And thank you to the listeners. We really appreciate you being a part of the conversation with us. If you want to get involved, feel free to email us at theglamchemist@gmail.com. And definitely go check out Nicole at the Curly Chemist. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.